you download, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Chrome, sorry, it's also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also all smart TVs 2016 forward. Now joining me as usual is Gary Groob. Gary, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, Frank. Unfortunately, Cam Bomberry had to attend to a few things. I've rescheduled him for April the 14th, so we will have Cam on, just not today. But I'm doing well, thanks. How are you?
I can't complain. Just it's now the world is thawing out, so we have all this stuff to do because it's thawing out. We're trying to retrieve some plants from our old trailer location, and they're not quite thawed yet, so you can't pull them out. So we're just a bit under the gun in that regard. So personal responsibility, and we're waiting for summer to arrive. Who isn't?
I know. It's nice to know that spring is soon in the air. Mother Nature keeps teasing us and then giving us a little kick of winter again.
It's here, just that the winter's in the ground real hard. And for some of us up here, we still have snow on the ground. I don't know what it's like where you are, but I believe the snow's all melted where you are, except for maybe the odd parking lot, right?
That's correct. The odd little pile that was 6 feet tall when we had that big drop is now about 2.5 inches tall, and that's about it.
There you go.
Other than that, snow is a thing of the past. It's a memory.
Okay, without the guest being here, it gives us an opportunity to look in other directions and get in deeper with what's going on in lacrosse, not on a personal level, but on a league and or organizational level. From what I understand, there's some big news happening at the PLL.
Yeah, the Premier Lacrosse League made two big splashes this week. One positive, and one I'm not so sure. The positive one, let's start with that, is it did the same thing. It went the road of the NLL, and it signed a multi-year deal with ESPN and ESPN Plus to broadcast their games. And this summer, you'll see the PLL broadcast is streamed exclusively across ABC, ESPN, ESPN2, and ESPN Plus. And in my opinion, that is huge because it will now be absolutely mainstream. Not that Peacock wasn't a good thing, but this thing is going to go, and I imagine just like the NLL will have games of the week and other things going on as well. So I think it's a massive thing to get the word out on lacrosse. The one that's not so great in my eyes. There's a little clause in the contracts that the players are signing, and that is while they are playing the PLL season, they are not playing anywhere else. This is a big kick to the Man Cup and to OLA with Major Series Lacrosse and the Western Lacrosse Association. When I looked at the list, there was about 45 players that were on that list that are major factors in these teams. So what's going to happen, I think Doug Louie made a comment on there, we just go forward as is, and whatever is what is. And that's the only thing they really can do. However, I think that the leagues were heading this way anyways because of the pay scales and a lot of teams not really making money. They're going to be like they were originally, and that's going to be you went from junior A to senior A, and it will be an amateur league. And, still good lacrosse. But
I wonder, the Man Cup's a big deal. Do you think there will be players that'll basically turn down, a season for what basically is a tournament?
I think what's going to happen is now players have to make a decision. I think Canadian players will have a more difficult time than American players. If you remember a number of years ago, a number of months ago, Jim Wasson, when he was on the show, made mention of the difference between the American players and the Canadian players is the Canadian players play for that Man Cup. They play for the cup. American players are playing for the contracts. And I know that the area has been grayed a little bit over the years, but it's still, we're brought up in Canada dreaming of raising the cup. So I think it's going to be a little bit more of a difficult decision for Canadian players of whether they're going to do that. However, there's a couple of enticing things we've talked about before, is that the PLL has not only a pay scale that's bigger than any of them have ever been, but they also have health benefits, year-round health benefits. And if you're walking down the street and roll your ankle, there goes your season. And I think that's going to come into play as well. So I think the major series and Western lacrosse might have depleted lineups, and you might see a lot of juniors and up and coming seniors that aren't quite field players or aren't quite PLL caliber as of yet, and that's what's going to fill the rosters.
You know that when you look at what's going on here, when we had Jamie on Dowick, the owner of the Toronto Rock, when we had him on, he wasn't a big fan of players playing even in the off season, never mind in another league at the same time.
Yeah.
So I guess, from an NLL perspective, and he's a long-standing NLL owner. So I'm not saying he speaks for all the owners, but I think his sentiment is probably something that's clearly throughout the league. So I guess my question to you is this what's going to happen? Because we always talk about how these players are playing 12 months of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see this maybe a bit of a red flag in regards to maybe slowing down how many different ways players play? And when you add the fact that money now is becoming an issue, whereas with the teams, but then also with the players specifically.
I think what you might start seeing is the NLL putting in their contracts that there's no other leagues to be played in. That's a possibility. Now, the PLL, because their backers are the same as the NLL, and we talked about that also, is for the first time ever that it's become uniform. They're starting their season later so that the NLL playoffs can finish and the players can make it to their first games. Whereas when it was the MLL, they would start in May, and most of the players who were in the playoffs missed at least 2 weeks, if not more, due to the playoffs. So I think the PLL is trying to work with the NLL. Again, you can get injured walking across the street. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And I think sometimes being a little bit too cautious is a problem in its own right. These players play 12 months a year. They're used to it. A lot of them do it so that they don't have to go and try and ramp it up in October or November, because they have the season that ends in September or October. They get a little bit of a break and then they go ramp again. So I don't know if that will be the answer, but it's out there. And owners like Jamie, they have a big say in this. And I think the more that they try and push, things could get interesting when it comes down to contracts.
Well, especially when you talk about contracts, they've always had contracts in the NLL. The question is going to be when those contracts become worth more and more, right? Mm-hmm. The temptation and or the decision-making process will be made easier to decide not to play elsewhere depending on how much you're earning. But what we're seeing, and correct me please if I'm wrong, mm-hmm. we're seeing an elevation in contracts across the board. It isn't just happening in one league; it's happening across the board in the in lacrosse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. It's a strange time because we're entering uncharted territories, especially with the contracts and with these television contracts. All of a sudden, you might see that the PLL bolster their contracts for the players too, to make sure that they're going to be coming back and playing. Just like the NLL is talking about, they're going to be bolstering up their contracts because of the rights being to these things and the guaranteed money. So, when Sakavas was on the show, he talked about, the old days where you rolled out a carpet, you opened your doors and hoped for the best. That's long gone. That's long gone. You now have merchandising. You now have the contracts and the rights and the television rights. And you have a bunch of layers in which there's money coming in, and it's going to filter down to the players. So if there's a way that that these guys can do 12 months, these guys are going to try for sure.
Yeah. The other thing is that, if you want to impress You're in the position now where we talk about how now it's on, ESPN and TSN, and we look at it as a way of promoting the game. So now
Mhm.
the pressure is because those networks have those events, they're going to get the additional pressure of making sure the best players available are showing up on the TV screens, not just for the teams, not just for the league, but also the networks.
Yes, exactly. That was the other point was, they're going to want all the talent on both ends. Both leagues are going to want to have their best players. So somehow I have a feeling that the top guy, whomever the commissioner will be in the NLL, and the Rabel brothers of the PLL are going to have to sit down and put together what they can and can't do for each other's league and how they're going to get across it, because inevitably somebody's going to get hurt somewhere, right, in one league or the other. And let's hope it's not a serious injury, but ACLs, MCLs, with the way these guys play and cut and move, there's a lot more of these type of injuries, and those aren't week-long injuries. They're going to miss next season. So we hope none of those happen, but inevitably they will, and there's going to have to be something contractually in there that we can't have leagues going after one another, going, "Well, you took my star." Can you
Well,
imagine?
the challenges are immense.
Very much.
When for lacrosse, because it's not like any other sports. I know other sports have leagues and stuff, but I don't think there's a sport that has not a clear path from minor leagues to professional, right? There's a lot
Hmm.
of zigzagging going on, and that zigzag makes what's going on right now in the decision making process. And I think it's one of the reasons why ESPN has decided to cover the PLL, because the PLL is not, maybe it's not the NLL, but it's comparable, and because it's comparable, it's going to get a chance to show how many eyes they can draw to the network.
Well, you got to remember also that the PLL, being field in the U.S., field is huge, and ESPN definitely wants a piece of that. And as that's becoming a more popular league, the way it's gone so far with viewership through Peacock and through other things, um, definitely ESPN is figuring this is the time to strike while the iron is hot. And of course, they want to get in on this one. Um, we keep thinking here as Canadians, box, 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 but really, we've put together good field teams now, because box players going to field have a much easier transition than field players coming to box. Also, figure this one, shooting into a big 6-foot net as opposed to a 4x4. You must think that, wow. So of
Yeah,
course
but
that the
let's not forget that they're using different sticks too. So uh, well, that and of course, I think the most important thing to realize is that 20 some odd years ago, Canadians generally played box lacrosse.
Mhm,
Americans generally played field lacrosse. In the past
mhm.
couple of decades, 2, 3 decades, we've had a transition on both sides of the border.
Very
North
much so,
going
yes.
south with the field game, and south going north for the box game. So,
Mm.
North American lacrosse has really expanded in both areas, which if you're only sitting in one area, you think it's only expanding there. So in reality, we're getting expansion in both games.
Yes, we are. And the winner is the fans, because, we're looking at some of the greatest players playing in both. And with us being able to view both now, this is going to be spectacular. Before, you could only hope that maybe you catch some highlights, maybe you catch a game here and there. If you went and, with like me, we would go out and buy Peacock and have all the games there. But generally speaking, if you have this in games of the week, the fan base is going to grow immensely. Look at what's happening with NLL. NLL is growing, insurmountably, because you have these games of the week, because you have people flipping around going, "Hey, what's that?" Exactly like we had said for many, many, many years, and it's starting to come to fruition. And now the PLL is catching on with it too, and ESPN is smart enough to come and grab just like that. They're going to be your ESPN, and you're going to be the lacrosse one-stop shop, if you will, year round.
Yeah, the other thing is that the expansion has also been not only the players moving north and south, the leagues moving north and south, where you had field lacrosse was something more or less south-ish, right? And then you have the NLL box lacrosse, which was indoor and in the winter. So you've got the two seasons now, and now there's more of a definitive line, which is why the PLL might be, and that is like you talked about, not dwarfing, but raining a little bit on the Man Cup parade. It's important to realize that lacrosse has grown a lot. We've talked about young players, we've talked about women, and also the
Mm-hmm.
same guys that we're playing now. The options for a player are limitless, it seems today.
Yeah, and the options to make money so that this can be their career is also becoming a fruition now. Where you worry about other things, you can do other things, sure, but you are going to be able to make it into a living that you're a 12-month-a-year lacrosse player, and with benefits, so you don't have to worry about your family either, which is huge. It's never happened
Yeah,
before.
the biggest thing's going to be, injuries and covering that. The
Mm-hmm.
game is tough to begin with, and it can be real tough on players and families, like you said. And one of the first places I think they'll go, because it'll be the most attractive thing, Gary, where the money will go, where it might not come right away into the players' pockets, but as far as benefits are concerned, a lot of players may consider themselves invincible, but a lot of players are introduced to their human side, not always on
Very
an
quickly.
ability to predict it happening. It's always a surprise, right? And just like insurance, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't buy insurance because you know something's going to happen. You buy it because you think it's going to happen and you want to cover yourself.
Or just in case. Yeah, you never know what's around the corner, what's in the next quarter, even.
And that'll be the
And then,
attractive
of
thing,
course, there's Gavin Prout, right? Gavin Prout, our guest from last week, who runs the insurance company that covers all
Yeah,
this stuff for him. So you can
absolutely.
always keep it in house if you're looking.
He's got prospective customers. That's for sure. That is for sure. All right.
Most
And what
definitely.
about the MLL?
Most definitely. And he's
What's
got
going on there?
well, the MSL, they're still working. They just had their draft, so they're getting ready for their season, which will be at the end of May. Obviously, we don't know who's playing now because of this new deal from the PLL. But they're ready to push forward, just like the WLA. They're ready to push forward. And basically, as the NLL season winds down, they'll be starting, and away they go.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it'll be
It should be
business
a
as
lot of fun.
usual, more or less. Everything is pretty much status quo there.
We haven't had much
It
talk
should
of.
be, and they're going to continue doing like they did last year.
Yep.
Yeah, they're going to continue doing like they did
Well,
last year with the NLL style rules.
yeah, we'll keep our eye on that. And speaking of the NLL, we haven't had much talk
For sure.
about the NLL directly as far as the games are concerned. I wouldn't mind looking at the standings and we'll talk about where teams are, where you thought they might have been. I see in the East, I see Halifax in first, the Thunderbirds. They sit at 8-3, a really good record, and they were
We
a
got
team.
Buffalo ahead of them.
Yeah, that's right.
We got
Sorry,
Buffalo ahead.
yeah,
They're at nine and
Buffalo's
one
ahead of them at 10-1. Yeah,
or 10-1.
ten
Sorry.
and one. Yeah, same thing. I got to scroll better, I guess. Right. So yeah, Buffalo has really moved forward. They've changed things a bit there. Their coaching changed, and it's looked really good on them.
Yeah. Well, you have a guy like John Tavares, and well, the guy is a legend as a player, and now he's showing that he is as good as a coach. We had questions originally when he came in because Buffalo was in transition. Steve Dietrich when he first took over the Bandits, took over the Darius Kilgore stuff, which they had no draft picks. They had an aging roster, and over a couple of years, he was able to, I think, first of all, picking up Josh Byrne a couple of drafts ago and building around it with Dane Smith, Fraser, a few other players, and they have become an absolute juggernaut. Having Matt Vince in net, Steve Priolo as their leader on defense and their captain, you have a team that is full of veteran leadership and a number of younger players that have come up to Hoka Net.
Well, I think we lost Gary. I don't know if I got lost or if Gary got lost. Hang on. Okay. So I'll assume that Gary's gone in the event that he is, and he'll be back shortly. Um, he was talking about the Buffalo Bandits who sit at 10-1, and of course, then you have the Halifax Thunderbirds at 8-3, and Halifax, while it was an expansion team, it came basically another one of those teams that moved. The Toronto Rock are 9-4. The Georgia Swarm are at 7-6. The Albany Firewolves are 6-8. The Philadelphia Wings are 5-7. The New York Riptide are 3-8, and the Rochester Nighthawks complete the East with a 3-9 record. The San Diego Seals, this is a team I can't wait to talk to Gary about. He spent a lot of time thinking about this team. They're in first, 9-2. The Colorado Mammoths, 7-5. The Vancouver Warriors, 5-7. The Panther City Lacrosse Club, 5-8. Calgary Roughnecks, 4-7. And the Saskatchewan Rush, 4-9. Both those teams, Saskatchewan and Calgary, have had incredibly great teams over the past few years. They've fallen a little bit on hard times. Winning championships can tend to mean that players don't remain because there's always that battle with trying to figure out who you can keep and why. That's one of the things you always have to deal with. So it's real difficult. Gary, I was just telling the folks at home, I was just listing the teams and where they're at, and we'll continue where you were at. I was really excited about talking about the Halifax Thunderbirds. The history for them is that they are already a team that was built. The NLL has been known to do this, and they had a good kickstart to their lifestyle, if you will. We lost your mic again, I think. Okay, he's gonna go again. If I could read lips, I'd tell you what he said. Yeah, so basically, Halifax was an expansion team, but not really, right? It was still no audio, Gary. And if he does have audio, Eduardo, hit me in the private chat. Let me know that he's got audio, and then I'm the one with the problem. Either way. So Halifax is an expansion team, but they just moved the team there, and it was a good team, and clearly it's still a good team, and they're fighting for first place against Buffalo, near perfect team. They've only lost one game, and that was on the road. They're a complete 6-0 at home. So the Bandits are the favorite going in here towards the end of the season. So it's going to be really interesting. The Thunderbirds are a team that, like I said, they're an expansion team, but in lacrosse even more than in other sports, where being an expansion team doesn't mean you can't play well, because they're more interested in ensuring that the new teams have a good start to building a fan base, and nothing builds a fan base better than winning a few games and being competitive within the league framework, and they are that. The Toronto Rock moved to Hamilton, and all the reviews that have come in about that team being in Hamilton, people are really getting accustomed to it. There's a lot of good reasons why it's great for not just the team to be there, but the fans are beginning to feel real at home there. You know, it's a new place to go watch the game. The sight lines are great. The game is clearly, you know, on a nice pedestal in that arena and in that city. I mean, they even well, you know, the Tiger Cats are their team. They wore those colors, and that is black and gold. They have those as well. And you might not have noticed, but the Leafs have black and gold now too. So I guess you know they played in Hamilton as well, but they didn't put the uniforms on that would have suited where they were playing. The Georgia Swarm is another one of those teams that expands and then and goes, takes a team that is pretty good and then takes the team and moves down south to Georgia. They had some great seasons, of course, and they play right now. They're you know 7-6, which is plenty well enough to make it to the playoffs, which is really important. The move that gets me is the Albany Firewolves, where they moved to Albany, and I got to tell you, this team is one of the gutsier teams in the league that has done a lot of things in as far as in their moving. They've had to maintain, you know, a lineup that in the NLL, and Gary will tell you in the NLL when you play for a team, there are accommodations made depending on where the team is and where you live. So you know, Albany's had a bit of a challenge, not much because they didn't go that far, Gary. I was just telling everybody about the teams and where they sit. The Halifax Thunderbirds. We were just about to talk about them and the fact that they moved to Halifax. They're a ready-made team, and you know the advantages in lacrosse where they respect the new franchise by giving fans an opportunity to get to see the team when it plays well instead of you know a new team comes in and they struggle.
Right. You can hear me now, Frank?
Yep, you're
Can you
fine.
hear me?
You're
Oh, good. Yeah, no, Halifax had a ready-made team coming from Rochester, but they built pieces on that, getting Warren Hill in net, also having Aaron Bold as a secondary goalie. So you really had strength in the back. You had Jake Withers already as a premier faceoff man in the league coming out of Rochester. Him, Trevor Batiste, TD Ireland are the top echelon guys. Um, you know, then you have you guys like Austin Shanks who've had great years. Cody Jamieson, who's been his leadership is insurmountable. You know, you can't replace stuff like that. So Halifax, they made a couple of moves at the end. In fact, they had made a little news today because they released Kyle Jackson because they said they signed Austin Theed, and apparently they wanted Kyle to do some different things. He wasn't willing, so they just released him. So you might see Kyle Jackson land elsewhere very, very soon. Somebody picking him up for the stretch run. But they're a very good team. They have two games against Buffalo this weekend. One that was scheduled and one that was a makeup COVID game. So the schedule has changed. The Buffalo game in Buffalo was supposed to be a Saturday evening game. It's now a 1 p.m. game. And that's to accommodate. They're going to go fly to Halifax for a Sunday afternoon game to make up that one game. So this is a huge weekend for the standings, which can either bring Halifax even with Buffalo, or Buffalo is going to run away with this division.
or maintain the status quo as it sits right now. Those two games, as you said,
Which will
are
allow
critical.
Toronto, to catch up because they have a big one against Georgia this weekend. Another
Absolutely.
spectacular thing, and Georgia's been red hot. Red hot. Lyle Thomas has been just lighting it up. His second half last weekend, I believe it was 9 points to make this unbelievable from, I believe it was 10-4 to a 15-12 victory. That was predominantly Lyle Thompson putting the team on his back, and Craig Wendy relieving Mike Poulin in net, who was having a rough time. And Craig once again showed why he belongs in the NLL. He just stoned the Albany Firewolves last weekend. And as a friend of mine and a former guest of the show, I love seeing Craig do well. He's such a great guy. I wish him all the best in his league. It's great to see.
Yeah,
And that's going to be a great game. Toronto. Sorry, Frank. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Yeah, it's going to be a great game. I was just going to say the same thing, and obviously,
Yeah.
this is the part of the season we love the most, because this is when the games that are happening have the most impact, and this becomes the pre-playoffs, situation
Yeah.
where players and teams are playing with a message to be sent, and that message is, we're coming after you, and that's why that first set of teams, Halifax and of course Buffalo, it's almost like a pre-playoff series. The same thing with Toronto and Georgia. So these have deep implications, not only for the immediate future but long term as well.
Yes, so much so, yeah. And you got a team like Philadelphia who is on the cusp of whether they can make the playoffs or can't make the playoffs, whether they can make it on the crossover into the West. This becomes almost must-win games for them. In fact, I think it is must-win games. Now, the problem with Philadelphia is they are a decent team, but they haven't beat anybody that's got an over 500 record yet. They play Rochester this week, who doesn't have a 500 record, so I think that they can pull this up this week. But it keeps them in the talk, but eventually they're going to have to play an upper echelon team. And can they muster the gumption to actually beat one of these teams sooner or later? Otherwise, they get to watch the playoffs from home. My
And they're
interesting
right
one
on
is
the border.
My interesting one is this: is out of the West, because yes, I heard you talking about San Diego as I was trying to get my my audio and video working here, but they are the class of the West. Yes, and the other teams, Colorado, that for a while it looked like they were going to really give them a run, have stumbled a little bit here and there. Had a few trouble. Vancouver, who looked very strong out of the gates, also have had a couple of exposing weeks. Should say Toronto exposed them big time, and then they had another week last week where they had a rough outing. My one here, the Panther City lacrosse team. They were looking like they were going to be your typical expansion team and have 1 win, 2 wins, maybe. This team, all of a sudden, has caught fire. And when I say caught fire, they're not talking about scoring a few goals. This team put up 20 against Colorado. They put up 14 against Calgary. Some of the best defenses in the league, and they're just filling the net. Not putting a few in, but filling the net. And they have a good nucleus. Nick DeMood in net has been absolutely spectacular. He's been the rock that they've been looking for. But the team, I think, is buying into Dan Teet's system. And Dan and I, we've known each other quite a while. And he's a fantastic coach. And I think Bob Hamley, as the GM, put together a great coaching squad, having Tracy Koluski, who's got, you take a look at his list, it's this long of his accomplishments, but he's also a really good teacher and been an assistant coach in Philadelphia and with the New England Black Wolves before. As a head coach, he's taking the time and he's explaining, he's mapping out. The practices are definitely sticking with the players. Teach stuff is now sticking with the players because you look at their offensive prowess and they are scary good. Their defense is coming along. Stevie Toll, another Hall of Famer, who is teaching the correct way of doing things. And now look at the players there. Patrick could go a conversation without talking about Rookie of the Year, and he's up there with Jeff Teat from New York and a few others. You're taking a look at they signed Dean Farrell, and since he's come on, the team has taken shape and gone on fire. Cam Milligan, he signed on 4 wins ago. These are flukes that this is happening. All of a sudden, you have this Nathan Grennan who came out of the Brampton Juniors, and he's acclimated into the NLL player that we had hoped. So it's coming, and this team is going to be scary good.
When you look at we don't have to say Panther City is a team that I liken it to the way the Black Wolves were. You know, they have to fight for every inch that they get. Nothing comes easy to them, right? And they're in a position, albeit in a difficult position, because they really are in a tough position to make the playoffs. The makeup of their team, Gary, have they, like, when you look at their defense, they're probably the worst defensive team in the National Lacrosse League. Is there something they can do, or are they changing their style? Are they able to play better defense, and do they need to win games?
Sometimes they rely too much on Doug Jamieson and net to save them. I think that's a big issue. He has been spectacular. Those who know him know a much bigger Doug Jamieson. He dropped 8 pounds before the season started, and
Wow.
his cardio and his mobility has tenfold increased. He was always a good goalie. He is just an absolutely spectacular goalie. But sometimes I think they rely too much on him. And, if he's going to face 50, 60 shots, they're going to go 15 goals. There was no excuse for the Firewolves collapse last week. They had that game well in hand, and all of a sudden, the Lyle Thompson factor took over, and they really made no adjustments to try and curtail what's happening there. I don't know if we can. I don't think it's because Glenn Clark's a really good coach, and he has again a long list of accomplishments.
Execution,
But are the players listening? That's the big
execution
thing.
could be
Yeah,
the problem.
that's the big thing, is to be able to execute play after play after execution, and also to be able to on the fly. Because if your opponent's changing, you're going to have to change with them.
So you're saying the transition game maybe needs a little bit of work for them?
Transition, maybe more offense. You're relying on Q to do a lot of the work. But I think defensively, they need to roll it out of set systems and be able to go with the flow, so to speak, and be able to can't rely on Jamieson to be the only factor as they're stopping whatever mistakes happen. I think they're a
We've
much
got a
better
lot of
team than the
proof
record
that they,
shows.
yeah,
But
and they've been a much better team
yeah,
recently
I think that they're
as
a much better
well. So
team.
they've won 4 in a row.
Yeah,
So they've
yeah,
they've won
they
4
have
in a row, so they're
whatever
getting
4 out of 5.
some down.
But
Yeah, they were 1 and
yep,
they were 1-8 4
but they
weeks ago.
they have that tendency.
Yeah,
True.
I think the goaltending's been really good.
They had trouble falling back though. That's the problem. They have to
Yeah.
be able.
Yeah, and the record's not much different
Mhm.
home and away. So it's not that's not the issue. If you're to look at an issue, are they playing well enough to play at home? And as far as the fans are concerned, fans want to see goals. Defense isn't what fans really want to see, at least not the average fan. Of course, the diehards who look at the game and understand every second of a game and every play made. They might be more interested in how defense work. Yeah, so they've straightened things out. If they can stay on like, they don't have to keep winning, they don't have to win 4 more games in a row, but they have to do pretty close to that to put themselves in a position where they can be in the playoffs. Calgary and Saskatchewan, 2 Canadian teams that have had a lot of success in recent memory and have fallen a little bit on hard times. With Calgary, I think we talked about at the beginning of the year, they lost a player. It's amazing. Can one player make that much difference on a team, Gary?
Dane Dobby can, yes. They lost basically the heart and soul. If you look at the team that won the championship a couple of years, Dane Dobby was, in fact, the team. him and Curtis Dixon still trying to do everything he possibly can, but he's had problems. I'll give you a good example. When Dane had that 6-game suspension, Calgary, the moment that Dane Dobby back from that suspension, Calgary made a push on winning the championship that year. Can he make that big a difference? Yes, he can. Yes, he can. And Calgary's going to reach to they have a good goalie. Christian Delbion, as he wants to be called, is a great, and I've watched him since junior. But you know, there's has to be more to it, and the team is in transition. As for Saskatchewan, this the same idea. The same idea is they had their time in the sun.
So Saskatchewan was the team that, sorry, just realized Gary, I was getting a delayed end to his conversation there. So Saskatchewan, the Rush are not playing as well as they've been capable of playing, and I guess what happens a lot of times with teams is they've got to get out of a rut somehow, and what we're getting from them is, I think, more or less their offense is, it needs a little bit of improvement. But the thing that's missing with them is the aggressive nature of their game, which was there previously. They don't have the same kind of aggressive attack and aggressive defense that they've had in past seasons. It's important that this organization continue to play the way they have been playing the past few years. This year's been a little tough for them. I know that it's as far as lacrosse is concerned, in Saskatchewan, they're very happy with this team. I know from the time that they expanded to their team, they wear the green and white proudly, won some championships, and ended up being a team that has really fit in well with the community. Now, unfortunately, right now they don't look like they're going to make the playoffs. But then again, they're only one win behind Vancouver and Panther City. So, there really is no team out of the playoffs at this point. It just takes teams to make a run, and they will be able to. Oh, here's Gary. Maybe we'll use audio this way. Hey, Gary.
Yes, well, I'm trying to get this back. I might as well give you some audio, Frank.
No, go ahead. I was just talking about Saskatchewan. You were starting on Saskatchewan, and the point I wanted to make and make sure people understand, who maybe don't follow the game as closely as we do, they're only one game out of a playoff spot, one win out. So, when we talk about Calgary and Saskatchewan, oh my goodness, they used to be such great teams. Things are not looking up for them right now. They're not that far out of the playoffs, are they?
No, they're not. They're not. But what I'm seeing for them as a team, they don't have that prowess that Saskatchewan has been known for the last number of years. They have been absolute dynamos, top of the West, and they don't. I think it starts in goal. They lost Evan Kirk. Shoot has done a decent job, but he's not that guy. He's not the one who's going to be able to win them that occasional game, steal them the game.
Right.
He's going to be in the nets, and he's going to do his thing. But he's like an Alex Bouquet over in Vancouver, or Steve Fryer in Vancouver. They're going to play well. Don't get me wrong, but they're not that guy like a Matt Vince who can steal you that game.
Understood. And with Calgary, again, this is a team that lost a player a little while ago, and they haven't recovered. What do you see as the main thing they need to work on to get moving up the standings? A short run will get you into the playoffs at this point.
It will. If they're able to put together a couple of games where they're actually consistent.
I think you came back.
I'm back.
Yeah. Okay. I'll turn this thing off so we get rid of the echo. So you're saying Calgary consistency, and now the audio's gone again. That's amazing, Gary. The audio disappeared. This has really been the show from, my goodness. Here. I'll call Gary. We'll try again. We're not having any luck today. We can look at you and we can use the audio here. So if you talk on your phone, have I got you on the phone? I probably got your answering machine, Gary. For some reason, the audio is not working. You gonna try and call me again? There he goes. Okay, there we go. Okay, there we go, Gary.
Unbelievable. My internet is just doing crazy stuff today. I don't understand it. We'll keep it this way without any audio, and I'll be on the phone.
Yeah, be on the phone. It works fine. We know what you're saying. We're seeing you say it. So let's try. We only got a few minutes left. We just have to struggle through this a little bit longer. Now, you were talking about Saskatchewan, and then I asked you about Calgary, what they need to do to straighten things out.
Yeah, the thing with Calgary is consistency. They need to be a little bit more, shall we say, consistent with their offense. Their transition game has been not very good. Most teams are able to defend them very, very easily. So they need to get a little creative, I think. When you have guys like Bob McMahon up there, the defense should come along. He's again, a Hall of Famer.
Absolutely.
And they need to listen to his messages. I just need to think that they need to get on the same page as they were. Dobie's gone, and they need to push forward. Come to the draft, I think they're going to need to do a few more things. They're going to have to really reevaluate for the next year on what exactly they need. If they need to find the new juggernaut offensive star, if they need to find that transition guy, maybe it's a face-off guy. Because again, lately the flavor has been you need that Fogo, you need the face-off go-off guy, because guys, teams like Halifax, teams like Toronto, Philadelphia all have them, and the possessions and loose ball numbers are through the charts because of them. And of course, that means more possessions.
Important. It's very important. Overall team play, is important, obviously. And when you talk about consistency, it's also a consistency, about every part of the game. And we were talking a little bit about coaches, and is it the coach? Is it the execution? There's another question too. Does the general manager do enough to provide the coach with the kind of players that can help him to be successful? We mustn't underestimate the relationship between a coach and a GM, right?
Very much so. The problem is when the coach is the GM, and then we have a whole other aspect of it. Or like in Toronto, where the president is the GM,
who was also the talent scout and all the other things. So, in your regular atmosphere, yes, the GM and the coach have to be working hand in hand, and seeing what they need and how they can do it, and they got to do regular scouting. And come the summer, I guarantee they're going to see a lot of it. You're going to see them in a lot of arenas, trying to figure out before drafts what's going on.
How do you think in the last minute or two, we've talked about the teams. How do you think the PLL situation is going to affect the NLL? Does it, do you think, affect it? Do you see, we talked about this, that we'll go out the same way we came in. Players play all year round. We've seen that. We've seen now that there are lines being drawn, where the PLL is saying, no, we just want you to play for us. How do you see lacrosse, this affecting lacrosse, the individual players?
I don't think that we're going to see a problem between the NLL and the PLL, not as of yet anyways, because both of them seem to rely on each other for players. And also, the players are looking to cash in on both TV right deals and actually have a decent wage to work with. Eventually, maybe. But as long as the seasons don't overlap one another, you can say, yeah, I don't want you to play in your off time, but really, you're only contracted until the last game of the season, and then you're free to do whatever you want.
Absolutely.
Until an injury comes up. And like I say, the two leagues need to sit down and just hammer out an agreement of the just in cases.
Absolutely. Well, Gary, this was fun. Don't you love technology?
It's been different, yeah. I'm hoping that Rogers and my Ignite will ignite, and we'll have a little bit more internet that will work with me. But thank you for being very, very flexible with me.
I have no choice, Gary. Here I sit on an island, and the island's called NLL Talk. NLL Lacrosse Talk. Gary, thank you so much for doing this, buddy. Hopefully it'll be better next time.
I'm sure it will, Frank. Thank you so much. It's always a great time to talk a lot of lacrosse. Next week we'll have Bill Malaysia on, Billy from Philly. So, he'll have a number of stories for us anyways.
I look forward to it.
Definitely.
He's Gary Groob. I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching NLL Lacrosse Talk. Seen live Thursdays at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network. For lacrosse talk, news, entertainment, and other sports programming we offer, please check out SpanglishWorld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you next Thursday at 4 p.m.